warranty on the AIO itself?
So obviously that's why we're not running clear tubes. We don't have a Plexi top that's completely translucent, completely transparent, sorry. We did leverage the translucent top, and with completely opaque tubing inside, it's just like ZMT. So we're able to run them with minimal losses.
So basically, they would be able to run maybe more than 5 years.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. So 5 years is the basic warranty period, but you might be able to even use it longer than that. It's all up to the environment, running temperatures and stuff like that, which will determine the lifespan of the AIO itself. We have one more interesting question about CPUs and GPUs. Will EK ever make GPUs and CPU blocks with integrated displays about temperature and flow readouts?
I think that's inevitable. It's definitely coming, and while we do try to preserve the minimal aesthetic as much as possible, keeping products slender, we've had a few projects recently that are starting to integrate electronics. We're using them alongside the Connect independently, and we'll slowly try and bring them into each product and really connect the whole loop so it responds intelligently to problems. But I don't think we will ever go to a gimmicky level of just trying to put information on every product. We're even quite restrained with our own branding. In the later generations, most products are just clean surfaces, and the market, our customers respond incredibly well to that. So we won't go too far, but we will do what we can that the loop can behave and give user vital statistics.
Yeah. One more question about accessories. We have mentioned readouts and flow meters. When do we expect flow meters, temperature sensors to launch? Actually, they should be coming soon. They should be launching this month. Probably we will have the flow meters and the G1 quarter style temperature sensors, which you can install inline into your loop wherever you find any room for it. We are just receiving a new question from our studio. Is EK planning to make new water-cooled RAM blocks?
Possibly. It's always inspirational to see people just picking out products from our early portfolio, and RAM blocks, they're always something that reoccur. People really love to have the most coolant they can on display. Yeah. And I think that's one of the really elegant things about liquid cooling, when you take the bulk of the radiator and the fans away from the hardware, and you can leave something elegant and slender and just show coolant and really nicely machined objects. RAM blocks definitely fall into that, and we're very busy for the coming year already. But when it makes sense, definitely we'll see them return, because people still have to use them.
So basically, we had made some samples, right? And we used them in the 909 build for last CES.
That's right. I made some samples for a mod just to complement everything else. It was a build where we had only liquid cooled parts on show, and that was the last thing. Where let's get rid of the last piece of air cooling.
Yeah. One more question about how about separate VRM blocks? I know that we internally had a lot of debates, should we, shouldn't we, but it was always a time factor about doing VRM blocks. What's your take on VRM blocks?
Definitely. This is always a heated topic, and I know Eddie told me at one stage, I found that the the VRM blocks were keeping the company moving when it was growing in its early stages, because mono blocks weren't so popular, and when people refresh boards, they often kept the CPU block, and the repeat sales from little VRM blocks and small accessories really helped EK grow. So I think we owe it to that to revisit them occasionally, and it's really nice that they can sit alongside any of our products. So we did bring the chipset block back for X570, so you can remove the fan on the chipset. So I hope we can do the same and have a VRM block alongside the CPU block.
One more question. I mean, we will have a lot of questions this time, but we have already addressed this one, but we will cover it again. So why do we have black nickel fittings, but we don't have black nickel blocks? Eddie explained it, I think it was the first day of the expo, that if you have such a large surface which is flat, black nickel is a bit demanding, and stains appear. Nickel plating with black nickel is a bit harder, so we would be having a lot of scrap of the blocks, which wouldn't pass through our internal control. So that is why we don't have it internally. So we have it only as an outside coating, which is easier to maintain and control. So that's about the...
We have actually visited black nickel on a few special items lately. The backplate from the
AMD
Radeon block, the special edition, and Strike, of course, also has some black nickel on show. And for the smaller surfaces with engravings and more intricate parts, it's beautiful finish. But for big flat parts, it's not so uniform as nickel.
Why is there no 1013 ZMT tubing?
I think it's really an industrial background from 1016, and I'm not always sure why people want the smaller tubing. I guess it's the aesthetic size in the system, but actually 1016, it's easier to work with in a big case and in a small case. Because it holds its shape, it has a much greater resistance to kinking, then it's really easy to use in a tight space, which is really counterintuitive.
So basically, I can tell you something about the 1013 ZMT tubing. It is called ZMT Big because it's zero maintenance tube. This means that you have no evaporation through the walls of the tube, so that you wouldn't be losing coolant through the tubing. If you make that wall thinner, so if we make a 1013, that means that it is no longer a ZMT. So you would have some level of evaporation through the walls. So we can maybe call it LMT, as low maintenance tubing. We are looking into actually producing it because for some reason aesthetically black tubings are again popular. So that's about the ZMT 1013. Me personally, I am pushing this idea, so maybe one day we will also have it. Getting back to the viewers' questions. Possibility of a universal distro plate.
This is on the cards, and I think if you follow closely till the end of the expo, you'll see potentially the first from us. We have it as part of a larger distribution plate solution, but it will be available on its own. And yes, we will definitely look into having one with a more flexible mounting. But fundamentally, the distribution plates we have now, if you make tiny modifications to the case, an extra screw hole drilled, then you can fit the Evolve or the fractal into different cases. The MSI build we have here in the Secura is using the Evolve, and it fits really neatly. So don't let it stop you from trying. But I think this is a really good topic to pick up in our next discussion when we're talking about planning.
Is it tomorrow, right?
I think it's our next session.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So we'll come back to that.
Do we have an example of the GPU-mounted flow indicators that we had in the showroom? And if you stick around tomorrow, we will be showing that in detail. So please follow up on us tomorrow. That's about the GPU-mounted flow indicator. When can we expect monoblocks? So right here we have questions about monoblocks for Z4990. We also have questions for AMD ITX motherboard monoblocks. What is the current status of monoblocks?
We were really busy on early collaborative efforts for Z490. As you've seen, the Pro Carbon that released in the last days, and the Formula Bridge, we were able to act really fast with these and have them available practically when the boards were available. So the monoblocks will follow. We have samples and we're ready to go. So in the next few months, we'll start to cover the most important boards.
So what are the rough release dates of the new quantum style D5 pump top? Actually, it will be during June, so the new pump tops will be available. First, we will be only selling the pump with the new pump top itself, and after 2 or 3 weeks, we will be bringing the standalone top itself, so that if you already own a pump at home, you can exchange it. That's about. What is the thing on the GPU ports in the case behind Joe? On the ports, I think there are only 2 fittings.
Yeah.
And that's it. Nothing else. It's a
torque rotary fittings.
Torque style rotary fittings and nothing else. We have a bunch of torque extenders in there, which will also be coming this month. They are already in mass production, so coming soon. Let's see some of those interesting questions. Are the flow meters compatible with Aquero? Our flow indicators do not have any flow readouts, so they are only physical flow indicators. But the flow meter that we will be releasing also soon, which will be working with our fan and RGB controller, we have not tested it. Will it work with the Aquero? Maybe we will investigate that later on.
I think theoretically it will with calibration.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it will be accurate with their software, but we're not using any proprietary connectors for any of our parts, so you can feel free to mix and match brands if it works.
Back to different materials. Are there any plans that we use different materials for GPU CPU tops other than just clear Plexi and of course brass, which is nickel plated?
Ooh, good question.
Because a few years back we had the
Red Plexi.
Yeah, we had the red Plexi, we had the green, we had the blue as well.
Yeah, I think that really RGB has put a
killed it.
Put a bit of a downer on the whole colors thing. Sadly, with the lighting inside, you can and the combination of coolant, you can get practically any effect. But a few things that we have been experimenting with in-house and we'll show later is actually we combine different parts from our own products. So the white acetal RGB accents from Plexi shifted from the acetal block to the Plexi block, and you get completely different effects again. So you can configure things differently, even if we don't have it.
So basically, for now it's dead. Maybe one day we will use red again for some limited edition AMD products maybe or something like that, but there is absolutely no plan for making mass-produced green, red, or like any specific color acrylic tops because RGB has taken it all over. And speaking about RGB, are we going to make RGB available inside radiators?
That's definitely something that's on the cards for the next series of quantum radiators. And we spoke a lot about radiators and fans so far, and I think it's important to emphasize that these are a massive investment for EK. Most of our products are machined with occasional electronics and standard items inside. So the tooling inside a radiator is a considerable investment, and we need to keep them for some time. We can't justify changing them unless we're going to change a lot. So yeah, if we're going to make big changes to the radiators, we'll definitely bring in lighting.
This is actually a very good topic because we inside EK also have different opinions, different takes on stuff. So if you ask me about RGB on the radiators, I would say that I don't need it because you have RGB on like every other single
like
piece
fans are
inside
the
the bin. Yeah. so leave us some market feedback right here. Let us know, do you think that we should do RGB inside the radiator, or having RGB on everything else inside the case is enough? A question about radiators again. Can we expect our entire radiator remake this year? I'm not so sure that it will be actually happening this year, but we will start working on it this year. So we have already started working on it.
Yep.
But it's a huge project that, just like we said a few times and just Joe mentioned right now. So there's a lot of things on our plate. Next question, someone with a InWin D-Frame 2.0.
Nice.
He wishes that we made a Distro plate for the InWin 2.0 D-Frame. It's quite an old.
I'm sure he knows how hard it is to get hold of a D-Frame. I think those only have a few hundred pieces.
I don't know.
Yeah, not so many.
Actually, I have liked the first D-Frame much more than the second gen. So.
And the Mini.
Yeah, the Mini. We are out of questions, people. Come on, people. Give us some interesting questions. I
think we can skip back a few topics to our personal opinions inside EK, and especially those surrounding RGB. It's a divider for sure.
Yeah, of course.
And the way I've been tackling it and the way I always try and push it back is, yes, we should do it. We can include it. But if it's off, it should look like it's not there.
Yeah.
And I think this has really divided EK's products from competitors in the last years. And the GPU block and the CPU blocks, we never have diodes visible. We always try and hide them. And if you wanted to just take out the LED strip and have no wires, not a problem.
Yeah. Finally, we have some questions popping up. So will the EK-D5 pump housing cover that we have in our shop for like a number of years now? It's a really old
from the Square, from the X-Top series.
So will that cover work on the EK reflection D5 pump?
Sadly not. On all of the reflections and the Kinetic FLT series, we're actually using a volute that's compatible with DDC and D5. So it's using DDC mounting points, which are a little bit smaller than the old X-Top series.
Actually, he was asking about the aesthetic nickel cover.
It used to fit inside inside the mounting, and you replaced the ring, but we'll definitely look into that again. We have a lot of reflections out there now, so.
Yeah, just like you can see inside that build, you can clearly see the backside of the pump. You can see the random specification there, which is not nice to see. So we are also considering of either changing the sticker itself or just making a separate cover so that it looks nicer. Classic versus non-classic radiators, what is the difference and why do we actually have two kinds of radiators?
So there is a small performance difference there. The cool-stream radiators are very, very well optimized, whereas we are a little more competitive on the price with the classic radiators, and they have their own unique styling that's a little less minimalistic than the cool streams. So yeah, there is actually a performance difference, and one thing to note, there is a physical size difference. So a PE from the classic line is a little bit thicker than a cool stream PE, but the performance is quite close together.
This is also the reason why you can see a difference in the price tag itself, because there is a actual difference between them, not just we have made it one cheaper and one more expensive. So will you guys ever sell pre-bent glass tubes? So this PC right here will be my home PC soon. And actually I have built it with glass tubes, and I have fallen in love with glass tubes. And from now on, I will be only using glass tubes. So I will be insisting.
I think we have a clear advocate for glass now.
Yeah. It is just so clean and resistant to scratching. So I have absolutely fallen in love with glass tubes.
I think maybe a year ago or just a bit more, it didn't make sense because you couldn't bend it. But now we have so many distribution plates, so many cases, and so many fittings to come to that will really solve that problem. And like you see from this build here, a simple 90-degree bend and the whole loop's done.
And also, actually, there are ways to bend it, and I was having fun with it, and I have actually bent a small piece in there. So it is a 60-degree bend, and I will be playing around with this, and maybe one day we will have mainstream solutions on how to bend glass tubes. Who knows? More questions from our viewers. Any plans for a really strong pump, even more powerful than a D5? Yes, dual D5. I mean, Joe, what do you think? Does someone need a more powerful full pump than a D5 or a dual D5?
I would say unless the loop is 7 meters high, they definitely don't need it. But I'm sure there are people who would like it. And there are people out there running triple D5s and arrays of DDCs, which if you really want to be extreme, you can actually get a bit more performance from the DDCs than the D5s. But I really admire the enthusiasm, but a D5 is definitely sufficient for most typical loops we have now, especially that multi-card arrays are on the decline and our blocks are getting less restrictive in general.
So we have a comment from Rodimus, and we just want to say hi to him, and we would like to mention Shellback Tech. Look them up, Google them up if you are based in the US. Google Google Shellback Tech and support them. Next question. We have seen some leaks about a strange design where they are having an GPU AIO where you would have the radiator inside a PCI slot. I think that you've seen this idea, and we have a question, what do we think about this? And are we going to make something similar like that?
I was really surprised by this. It seems like, my initial thought was that it seems like a strange move. Really, the beauty of water cooling puts you out of the constraints of the PCI specification, the ATX specification, and you're working then into the realms of nice cases where they've really thought it through how it's going to integrate. But definitely, occasionally, you want to fit something in a case that doesn't support any 120 millimeter form factor. And it's an interesting way to get it in, but it occupied a massive amount of space in terms of PCIe slots. Yeah.
Back to the pumps, D5 pumps. At what point will we need a second D5 inside a loop? So about the number of D5s, mostly you would put dual D5s just to have redundancy. So if by any means, any case, one of the pumps fails, you would have one more pump that would be working inside the loop. So this works with workstations, servers, and similar things where like making them run is really, really important. So you wouldn't have downtime just because you have a pump failed.
I agree. I think that's the most likely reason behind it. If you have a system where you really don't want to experience downtime and you have extremely long render times, extremely long processing times, then dual D5s will be great to make sure you keep moving. Make sure to isolate them from each other as much as possible. Don't put them on the same exact Molex chain in your PC, just in case that's the failure point.
Why does EK not have water blocks for SSDs inside, which are mounted inside the PCIe slots?
We did have, for the last seriously hot running, the Intel 900P. We did have it. So if more exciting thing comes to storage, we'll do it too. But I think M2s have really shone since then, and we of course have the classic M2 heatsink. Yeah. So I think we're covering storage quite well with that.
We have got multiple questions about RGB backplates.
Ooh.
What do you think about RGB backplates? This is also a topic where we can ask our viewers, do we really need RGB backplates? Obviously, someone needs it. What do you think about implementing RGB into the backplate itself?
I mean, we have the backplate there because nobody wants to look at the backside of their graphics card. There's nothing especially nice to see unless you're really turned on by solder points. It's not so exciting. I don't think we would want to have an absolutely huge branding surface like that. That's not really the EK style to have a giant logo. So maybe the logo on the backplate there, we could sneak a few diodes underneath, but the whole backplate, I don't really see it. And all of velocity vector blocks at the moment are within a single slot. Yeah. So the block and the backplate together are under 20.32 millimeters. So you can stack 7 if you need to.
We will be wrapping it up shortly so that we can take a short break before we have our next video live. But we have a interesting question. Is EK planning to go back to full board blocks? Actually, implementing liquid cooling lately on the whole board is a bit challenging because all of the plastic parts which are being applied onto the board. So if you start removing one thing, you would have to take up the whole cover. So either we have to work alongside with the vendor so that it makes sense, so that it looks good. But otherwise, this is one reason why we have stopped doing it. Maybe in the future we will have such things, and actually something is coming what we can talk about it much, so just keep your eyes peeled. Joe, what's your take on the full board blocks?
We really are at the mercy of the board manufacturer. Like with a lot of things, we're trying to get them out in a timely manner because, you know, as soon as you get your new motherboard, you want a new monoblock, and we want to get them moving efficiently. So to take such time to cool the chipset, which is fine with the standard heatsink, and also completely in the process change the design of the board. I think there's potential for a board that has more EK design to it, but it's not something we would repeat across every monoblock.
And we can just share with our viewers that the general feedback on should we have RGB inside our radiators is no. So I win. Maybe we will repeat this question within a month or two and see if it changes. But for now, no RGB in the reds, I guess.
But we do know most people want RGB fans, and if RGB in the rad meant there was a little PCB in there to plug all of your fans into, and it just had a diode on the end for the logo, something like that, I think everyone would change their mind.
We will take one more question and then we will wrap up, and we will see you in the next live. What about RGB fittings? I think it's the same answer as with the radiators themselves. Like, do we need one more element which will have a wire coming, and you would have to take care of that wire? I mean, imagine this build right here. If you had each fitting coming with a single RGB cable off of them, sure, sometimes it will look good, but it will be a pain to like hide all of these cables. And at the same time, EK would want to focus on like having more fitting options than just making a separate series of the same functionality fittings, which is a fitting with just added RGB.
Completely agree. We have a secret system down in the heart of EK that's we're going to show to you tomorrow. I won't give too much away, but it has 66 fittings inside. Not individual fittings, but 66 tube fittings. And if it had an extra 66 wires, you wouldn't be seeing it tomorrow.
So thanks for joining us in this live. We will be airing our next video within 15 minutes. And right after that, it will be back with me and Joe, and we will be also continuing with questions. So please stay and write down questions, and we will be happy to answer them. Thanks for joining in, and see you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.